Hey guys, welcome back to Daska Discusses. Yeah, well, as you can see, I'm not actually streaming a video game today, but I will be probably later on. We'll see what happens. But a couple of days ago, well, maybe a week ago, when I passed 300 subscribers, that is, I promised myself, even back in the day, I said if I ever get to 300 subs, I'll definitely have to do a 300 movie review or discussion. And here we are. The other week I had 240 subs, and then boom, out of nowhere, well, not out of nowhere, after playing Call of Duty, Fortnite, etc., ended up getting a lot of subs. Actually, it was something like maybe 55, 60 in like a few days or so ended up passing 300, and pretty happy with that. And I said in one of my streams, I think it was the COD one, I said if I past 300, I'm going to do a 300 movie review and discussion. So let's do this, shall we? Now, just bear with me because I haven't actually done this before, where I'm doing a movie review live as we speak. But look, 300, let's just double check when it was made. We've got 2006, that's right, directed by Zack Snyder, of course. And I'll tell you what, being of Greek background myself, and watching this was quite a feat. And look, to be honest, I did read the graphic novel back in the day. Here it is here. This is a hard copy version, and I don't know if you can see it there, where it is there. And I actually do have the art of the film book as well, which goes through the making of it, and I might open up a couple there just so you can have a look. But I'll tell you what, the graphic novel, and if anything, the movie is really, it does do the graphic novel justice. I mean, just about a lot of scenes from the graphic novel are actually taken directly, and you can see it in the actual film itself. It's like basically taken straight out of the graphic novel and put into the film. Now, the film itself, what we're going to do is we will go through something that I go through when I teach film, which is looking at camels, right? So not camels like, the actual animal, but we're talking like camera, acting, mise-en-scène, editing, lighting, and sound. So looking at the camera work in this, I reckon we could mix up the camera work with lighting and just say that obviously Snyder's gone for this comic book feel, obviously sticking with that kind of theme from the graphic novel, but using that sepia tone as well really does, or that sepia rustic kind of like film grain tone that's in the film is what makes it, right? It feels like you're in ancient Sparta. It's got that golden bronze feel, obviously the Bronze Age with, the shields and everything like that, but that whole thing, like, when you're a kid and, went and visited these places in Greece with family, you're like, oh yeah, statue of Leonidas, no big deal kind of thing. But then when, you're growing up and you're reading a little bit about it, and then you watch the original version, I think it was from the 60s, at school, and I'm like, look, it's not bad, it's okay, but, 300 Spartans going against that many Persians, whatever they want to say, 1 million, 100,000, 500,000, whatever it was. It's quite interesting, I reckon, how they can display that in a movie from the 60s and throwing in, ancient Greek terms as well. But you look at Zack Snyder's version in 2006, and it just really ups the ante. Now, it was a pretty popular film back in the day, and on IMDb, what do we got? It's got a rating of 7.6 out of 10. Yeah, look, that's still pretty good for a film like this, where a lot of people, if you read some of the reviews, think that it's... I'll just read you one here that I've got. See all 2,000 reviews on IMDb. And, 8 out of 10, 9s out of 10s, etc. But let's look at a 1-star review, what people say about it. More old men, just a terrible mess. What is the point? There is a few you can't blame. Best animated movie of the year. Worst historic movie ever. I'm amazed the enthusiasm for Assault on the Senses is one of the worst films I've seen. The movie is god-awful. A celebration of stupidity and dismemberment. You might as well be watching a snuff film. Okay, take it easy. Look, the violence in this is, over the top, but if people had seen the graphic novel, would realize that that's the way it's shown in the graphic novel. So Snyder's gone for that look. Now you're looking at something like Gladiator or Braveheart, where, if anything, look, I understand that the violence in 300 may be a bit full on with all the blood splurts everywhere. However, it does have that comic book feel about it, compared to something like Braveheart or Braveheart especially, where the violence is right in your face and it feels a bit more realistic. Whereas in 300, it's got that tone to it where you're like, okay, this guy's arms just got chopped off. Okay, this guy's head got chopped off. Moving on from that. Whereas in Braveheart, when something happens, it's visceral and it's right in your face. So going back on that review that person said, yeah, I don't know about that. But hey, everyone's got their own opinion. You're looking at other ones that gave it 1 star. Yeah, a lot of people just say it's just too violent, and it's American propaganda. Okay, made during the time of the War on Terror, blah, 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 etc. Look, yeah, the representation of the Persians, I wonder what they're trying to say about that. Okay, look, I understand at the time, people did kind of put them into the reviews about saying how it's like showing the 300 as the Americans, and then the Persians are like Al-Qaeda, or whatever you want to say. So, yeah, I mean, at the time, when that War on Terror was happening, yeah, I could understand how people could come to that kind of conclusion. But I look at it in terms of it's based on the graphic novel, and if you've read the graphic novel, you'll see that it's basically taken straight off the comic book, out of the graphic novel onto the screen. So just one sec. I mean, when you look into things, the ideologies of when something was made, I understand that, because I do teach ideologies of certain films. So for example, we look at Aliens, and you can look at Aliens and say, okay, how is gender represented in Aliens? Well, if anything, in Aliens, you've got Vasquez, Sigourney Weaver, really powerful kind of characters, but there's still some sexism involved in that film. So what was happening during the 80s? Well, we look at that, and we look at Blade Runner, how it's the complete opposite of that. So I'm not going to get into that now, but here's a scene where Leonidas is watching the Persian ships get belted by the waves, etc. There it is there. I can't say it too much, but you can see how it's identical to what you would see in the film. And it's not just that scene. There's so many other just still shots that are really evident in that. Hang on, one sec. So that's what I'm going to go about that. I mean, in terms of camera, I'm going to say that the cinematography in it is fantastic, and the way they use set design, props, it makes you feel like you're there. And even these, use of close-ups and all these shots here are really, really reminiscent of the film as well. So I'm going to say that in terms of camera, Yoko, Maya, Kia, DG, hello, Yoko. Welcome to the live stream. Got a question about 300? Let me know. So, in terms of the camera work, yeah, definitely, it has to have that look about it. So you could say that, cinematography, a lot of it was filmed on green screen. Maybe you don't agree with that. But when it comes to this type of film, I don't see any other way that Zack Snyder could have done that without using heavy visual effects. Some of it feels real, but a lot of it does feel a little fake in a way, but it does have that comic book feel. Acting, right? Let's talk about acting. In terms of acting, you've got Gerard Butler playing Leonidas, who I think really did well. Yes, released the Schumacher cut of Batman Forever. Talking about Zack Snyder, now that we're here discussing 300, which was one of his, well, obviously he's made a few films now, but let's talk quickly about the Snyder cut of Justice League. Now, it is well known to friends of mine that I am more of a DC fan than Marvel, and I'm really looking forward to the new Batman film with Robert Pattinson. But before that happens, really looking forward to the Snyder cut of Justice League. Now, a lot of people say that's a dog's breakfast of a movie. Whatever. If it's 4 hours long, apparently it is. Whatever. I'm still going to watch it, and I'm looking forward to it. The Snyder Cut. So we'll see how that goes, shall we? So, talking about acting of 300, Gerard Butler, Lena Headey, Dominic West, David Wenham, Aussie guy, Vincent Reagan, who was actually in Alexander as well, another movie. Michael Fassbender. A lot of people forget that Stelios is Michael Fassbender, the guy that says, we'll fight in the shade. That bit there when he chops that Persian guy's arm off and he's got no top on. Now saying, Yoko, yeah, I like DC more than Marvel. Yep. Look, it's not that I don't want to get into arguments here about Marvel versus DC. It's just that I think I grew up liking and enjoying Batman and Superman more than the rest. Now, you can always say, Daska, well, that's because back then there wasn't many Marvel films out. True. One thing I did like about Marvel as a kid was Spider-Man. I really enjoyed Spider-Man. Never read Thor, comic books, Iron Man, all that kind of stuff, but Spider-Man was something that I really enjoyed, and I could name you all the villains from Spider-Man and the story of Spider-Man pretty easy. Is that because of... Well, I'll tell you what's because of. It's probably because of playing a lot of older video games like Spider-Man back in the day. So, in terms of acting, it is a bit over the top. 300, they're in ancient Greece, they've got English accents, and then you've got King Leonidas, Gerard Butler, who's got a Scottish accent. But that's the whole thing about the film, is that, yes, it's over the top, but I think it just plays in really well with the content and the story. Gerard Butler does a really good job, and he's forever remembered as King Leonidas, and he's iconic in that role. I mean, I've seen people with tattoos with that. I mean, it's ridiculous. But him, Fassbender plays a good role. He's Captain Vincent Reagan, who's been in a few films, and Lena Headey, who plays the Queen. You really do root for her in this film. And then you see her in Game of Thrones, and you've just got this thing like, was she in 300? And you're like, yes. And then she plays Queen Cersei, and you're like, oh, I really liked her in 300. Now I'm really hating her. Then you've got Ephialtes, who obviously wears a lot of makeup and prosthetics. He played a good role. Latin Americans, DC fans want to see the Snyder Cut even when HBO Max is not in Latin America. Well, yeah, we don't have HBO Max here. However, I think one of the pay TV channels here, or cable channels, is going to show it, and you're going to have to pay for it, which kind of sucks in a way because, again, Latin Americans, DC fans, if you can't get access to it, that really is a bit annoying. So, I mean, it's like Game of Thrones here in Australia. The only way you could watch it is if you had cable TV, pay TV, and you had the Showtime channel, just say. So, don't know how it works in Latin America, but yeah, that's a shame if that happens. Rodrigo Santoro playing Xerxes. Again, when you first see Xerxes in the film, you're probably thinking, geez, this guy is a bit over the top with all the piercings, but I think that whole binary opposite of the Spartans or the Greeks and the actual Persians is very interesting how they do that. Now, in a way, I could see how people could be offended by the way some characters are portrayed on the Persian side. So yeah, I can understand that. Snyder Cut with Spanish fans, dubs. Yeah, well, look, again, with the Snyder Cut, Yoko, yeah, you're definitely going to have to, they're going to have to release it with subtitles for everyone, or like in different languages, because it is a 4-hour film, and plus, I mean, you've got to get that worldwide kind of audience. I mean, with what's happening around the world, we all know what's happening with pandemics and all that. How are they going to make certain cash by just having, they can't really do cinema releases now, so it's going to have to be, streaming. Yeah. So, where were we? So, the acting is over the top, but in a way, it works for this film, I think. So, I could see why some people think that, it's a bit ridiculous, these guys running around, killing each other, screaming all these war cries, but again, it links well to the comic book, it links well to the film itself. Spartans, prepare for glory. There's so many good lines. There's, this is Sparta and fight in the shade, and a lot of it's taken out of ancient history texts, Greek history, and a lot of it's taken from the graphic novel as well. Come and get them, a simple thing that he says. Hang on, I'll just bring up that shot here. One sec. So, this shot here where he basically Leonidas says, Persians come and get them. Well, that's actually an important line, because on the Leonidas statue in Sparta, it's got the words molon laver, which means come and get them or come and take them. So it's very interesting how they incorporated a lot of the lines from Greek folklore, right? So let me just fix this. Hang on one sec. All right. So in terms of Godzilla versus Kong, Dawn of Monster Island, I'll tell you what, I really need to watch. The Skull Island movie and the Godzilla one. That's two things that I haven't actually looked at, Yoko. But look, I hope you enjoy the channel. I hope you're enjoying this. Don't forget to like, subscribe, all that jazz as well, please. It will be interesting when that comes out, and I wouldn't mind watching it, because I think I'm Team Kong, to be honest. Godzilla's pretty cool too, with that radiation fire that he spits out. But yeah, anyway. Ellie Strozlik, how's it going, Cena? I can't see you, Ellie, so yeah, I can see you. You missed out on the Among Us. I forgot to tell you about the Among Us night playthrough I did, Ellie Strozlik. Ellie, have you seen the movie 300? I think I may... Yeah, let me know if you have. So, talking about mise en scène, which in film terms means that is... Well, it's a French term for it, which means that which is in the camera or that which is in the frame. So you could put it in terms of when you see a shot in 300, how is it framed, or camera shot, lighting, where are the actors placed, what's in it, the color used. And so you could mix this up with camera as well. Mise en scènes are really, it's not difficult to understand, but once you get the grasp of it, it makes sense. Daska, you dog the boys. I may have to take your sub count down to 328. Well, Strockers, I had 330 and I dropped one. Don't know what happened. 328, dog the boys. To be honest, Strockers, didn't dog anyone. It's just that I completely forgot to let you know, but I promise next time I will. It was just a last minute thing. It was either I was going to play FIFA that night, but what happened was there was an update, typical. So I ended up playing Among Us, which was an hour and a half of me not even getting a... Imposter was a joke. I don't watch movies, you should know that. That's why I did media. Well, that's classic, isn't it, Strockers? Yeah. That is gold. Okay, so mise en scène. How everything's placed in the frame and where is it? Look, again, referring back to either this book, the 300, the graphic novel, or even the Art of the Film book. Hang on one sec. There we go, hang on. The Art of the Film book, as you can see, like filming a lot of green screens, etc. But the whole point of like a lot of the shots, the battle shots there isn't many wide shots that they use. A lot of it's like full shots where you see like a full body, but there's nothing like that's really far. And when it does pull back, when the camera does pull back, you can tell that it is quite fake in a way. It's got that artificial look about it. So a lot of what he fills in the frame is either like good guys, the bad guys, or a lot of excessive blood. In the trailer Godzilla Kong, there's a little girl who can speak to Kong. I hope she's also known Mothra with the Save Mothra. Oh, that's weird. She can speak to Kong. Okay, cool. I know one thing about that King Kong movie is that they've made Kong into like a lot bigger than what he normally is. So he does look a bit expanded, I guess, and huge. So yeah. So mise en scène, like I said, depending on what they're doing, depending on the shots, I just think that in a film, like there's not many wide shots. There's just a lot of full shots. So in terms of these battle scenes, we don't see too much, but when he does fill the screen, when the Spartans are in there, you got red because that's their color, their capes. You've got Leonidas with his helmet and everything. He just looks the part of that ancient, you see the ancient Greek paintings and the history books and all that, and it just looks the part. So in terms of mise en scène, Zack Snyder does a great job, and he does a great job with a lot of films that he directs, obviously, as well. So editing, so we've got camera acting, mise en scène, editing. The editing of the battle scenes at times can be like, it's not too quick. At times, if anything, I think one of the editing techniques that he uses is the use of slow-mo. Zeus in Justice League looks like Leonidas. Yeah, I agree with that, Yoko. Definitely. I've got to have another look at that. So, in terms of editing, I think one thing, Jake, in terms of editing, I think Zack Snyder does overdo it a bit with the slow motion in the film as well. So there's a sequence where it goes for like about a minute of just slow-mo footage of Leonidas killing a whole bunch of Persians. I get that, but at times it's not just that. There's like when they go to the Agoge, there's a whole bunch of scenes that are just slow-moed, and it's like way too much. So it's kind of like Rocky IV with the montages. Slow-mo in this film is used a bit too excessively. However, I must say one thing. My favorite editing component of the film is probably near the end of the film, where obviously Leonidas is there and it's been a few days of battling, and that Persian guy comes and says, just kneel to Xerxes and you'll be spared. The editing between Leonidas, the close up in his eyes, the close up to Xerxes, the close up to like him kneeling down, pretending to kneel down, and then it flashes back to his wife and kid back in Sparta. I thought it's one of the best scenes and well edited there, and then it just goes full action packed in that last battle sequence. That whole action sequence that whole sequence there of him kneeling, and then the fight sequence is edited very well, and it does give the viewer a lot of tension, and I think it's amazing. What else can I say about amazing? I've got to think of other words than amazing. It's well edited. It provides tension, suspense. And then ultimately, spoilers with what happens. They sacrifice themselves. He dies. That was just a great way to end that whole sequence. Now, lighting, we already touched on it in terms of like mise-en-scène and camera. So we're not going to go too much into the lighting. A lot of naturalistic lighting in a way. The interesting part is the nighttime battle scenes, which are interesting. It's just flooded with this like blue filter, obviously. At times it could be difficult to see, but one of my favorite uses of lighting in the film is probably, again, at the end when Leonidas is the last one alive and he's thinking about his queen, and he looks up and there's the sun, and he's got like his silhouette there with his arms out like this, and then all the arrows come down. That is an amazing use of lighting, the way they did that, right? So, sound. Now, remember with sound, when you're teaching film, there's two distinct categories of sound. There's non-diegetic and diegetic. Now, all my students know this, that non-diegetic is like the soundtrack or a voiceover that people use, or like, the actual score of the film. So, looking at, I hope the success of the Snyder Cut, Disney will release the Lucas Cut of Episode 9 or Episode 3. Lucas Cut of Episode 9. Is there an actual Lucas Cut of Episode 9? Okay. The Lucas Cut of Episode 3, I've heard that is about 3.5 hours long. You know what I'd like, Yoko? I would like, and you can get these on the internet, the original cuts of the original trilogy of Star Wars. So we're talking about without all the digital alterations and everything, and you can actually get these on the internet somehow. They're called the despecialized editions, and they're the ones that I grew up watching, where there is a few little mistakes here and there, things don't look that clean, but you've got Boba Fett's voice in Empire Strikes Back. That's the original Boba Fett voice, which goes something like this: "What if he doesn't survive? He's worth a lot to me." That guy. Whereas then they put in Tamura Morrison's voice in the remastered version, which is, "What if he doesn't survive? He's worth a lot to me." Yeah, just the Boba Fett voice. "He's no good to me, dead." Yeah. So I hope they do that first. That would be great, but I really think that Disney, they're not going to play ball with that. They're not going to be like, "You know what, George? Give us your version of Episode 3. We'll put it on there," because they don't want anything to... Not that I don't want anything to do with him, but I just think, yeah, who knows. Now, I did make an announcement on my Instagram that I was jumping on live. Let's see if we've got any action on that. Not much. I should have put it earlier, but what do you do? Oh no, there's a few people on there. If you're on there, guys, jump on. So, where were we? Alright. So, sound, going back to sound. So, non-diegetic score in 300. I think the score is a fantastic, real percussive, bassy, powerful score that works really well. There is some great orchestral themes like Returns the King and Come and Get Them. I think that's called The Battle Takes Place or something like that. But there is some really, really strong themes that you can see that they replay before sports matches, after sports matches, during things at halftime. They replay. I hear this soundtrack so much used in trailers as well. I think some of it's borrowed from another film, maybe. I've read. But there's, even like Greek sayings in one of the songs when they go into battle. They're chanting "Ferto partito," which means "come and get it," which is interesting as well. So I really like how they did that. But I really do rate the soundtrack of this film. I think it's a really it's a well scored film, especially when he leaves his wife as well. There's those hints of like Gladiator, or Lisa Gerrard, who did the Gladiator soundtrack, and she's also in the Dead Can Dance band from Melbourne, which she sang in a lot of the Gladiator soundtracks. So yeah, huge fan of her. Restore the despecialized verse of Star Wars. Well, that the hashtag I made early. You know what, Yoko? I agree with that, and I hope you stick with the channel and subscribe so you can be an active member, mate, because I agree. And talking about Star Wars, the despecialized versions, those guys that did it, that are on the internet, those fans that did it and they remastered a whole bunch of them, is something to behold, to be honest. So, moving on from non-diegetic, let's look at diegetic sounds and the way that's used. So, diegetic meaning that the actual sounds, like the battle sequences and how that's actually done in that, like the use of sound effects as well, is amazing. So, the stabbings, etc., all that kind of stuff actually does sound pretty full on as well. Don't know what that was. So, the sound effects are really well done in that. So we've gone through camera, acting, mise-en-scène, editing, lighting, sound. And now let's talk about a final kind of verdict for it, or my thing. The storyline, you got 300, they're going against the Persians, and then they go to help with the Greeks, and they don't help them, so they basically go to hold the hot gates, Thermopylae, to actually hold the hot gates before, so that to slow down the Persian invasion. There's your story. If you want to look into it more, you can look it up on Wikipedia, the story of what happened there. The acting, we've talked about all that, but in the end, I really enjoyed the film. Even if you're not of if you knew the story, then you'd be a huge fan of the film. But if you're of that heritage, then I think you enjoy it a bit more as well. Met G, MD, hey Met G, let us know what you thought of the movie 300. I'm just summing up everything here. As I was saying, I just think the movie itself is highly rewatchable, and especially you got a lot of mates around, or it's a good motivator in terms of the soundtrack and everything like that. When you watch the film, you feel very pumped up. Now, other films that you feel similar kind of ways would be probably things like Rocky 4, Rocky 3, not Rocky 2, but all the Rockies, put it that way. Those Rocky films, Karate Kids, those ones where you're up against the odds and you come back and you fight back to win. However, in 300, we know that they don't end up winning, but then in the last sequence, they all go, all of Greece unites and they go to battle against the Persians. So it is one of those motivator kind of films that is highly stylized and over the top for a reason. People complain about the violence. I get that, but looking at this violence compared to something like Braveheart, this is very tame. So, anything else you guys want to say, let me know. But in the end, that's what I'm going to say, is just that I think it's a fantastic film. Now, Where does it stand on the rating out of 10? I'd have to say, for me, I'm a huge fan of the film, and it deserves, for me, my stamp of approval is a 9 out of 10. Where does it lose a point? I think it loses a point with the overkill of the slow motion. I know you're thinking, Dasko, how can you take a point away for that? Sometimes it's just too much and it takes you out of the film. The pacing of the film is great. You know, you don't have battles straight away. It has to build up to a story. The film actually does have a proper story, and I've said this over and over. And Met G, if you're there, I was just talking about how the graphic novel, you'd be probably interested in this. The graphic novel follows, well, the movie, the film. How close to the story does it actually follow? Well, having done a lot of, look at this, pretty epic. Having done Greek history at school and learning about it, you know, being in that kind of heritage, the one thing I can remember from the story is that all the stuff about come and get them and fighting in the shade are quotes that were said, well, were written in history books as well. But I think the one thing that wasn't, from what I had read or like learnt, or, you know, if you're looking up history, is I don't remember anything about the immortals. I don't remember anything about, like, obviously, you know, magicians and potions and throwing those kind of bombs and elephants and rhinos. A lot of that's taken way out because it is a battle film. But I just think that whole concept of how they wouldn't help the Spartans and they went there to hold the gates as well, that whole thing about politics is quite accurate. And you can actually check it out in, you know, when you are checking out historical things, you know, Wikipedia is, you know, Wikipedia. Maybe just check out different sources, and that's what, you know, you should tell all students as well, is actually checking different sources and reading different ways about different I've said this, different sources of the same story, just checking out, you know, encyclopedias, or, you know, not just Wikipedia. So some things are accurate and some things aren't. Obviously things are over the top because they have to entertain you. So the bits when there's like a rhinoceros running towards them and elephants and all that, I really don't think that happened. But yeah, it's like Medusa, you know, like it's a lot different. We're talking about, this is not a myth. This is like part of ancient Greek history. It's like Leonidas was the king of Sparta, and this is what happened. And you've got other stories like that. You've got other, like, you know, Achilles and Alexander as well. So we're going to leave it at that, people. Well said. Thank you, Meth G. It is difficult to think on your toes when you're live, but this has been fun, I must say. The reason I've got this in my ear is because in case this microphone actually wrecks, and to check the peaks. So let me know if it sounded good. I probably will go live later on tonight. Either, don't know what I'm going to play. Maybe FIFA against a friend. Maybe I don't know about Fortnite, but something. Who knows? So, without further ado, people, Moop Joop, hi. I just want to thank everyone for being part of the stream. Yoko, Strockers, Met G, and Moop Joop. Felt like I was back at school. Thank you, Ellie. Don't forget to subscribe, guys, and spread the word if you wish as well. This will be obviously uploaded to my channel. I've been talking for half an hour on 300, but the main reason was to thank everyone for subscribing and to do a 300 review because I passed 300 subs. So hope you've enjoyed it, guys. What else can I say? I'll catch you guys later tonight, hopefully. Watch a bit of the tennis, maybe. I don't know if anyone's playing. Get Dasker to 330. It'd be nice to get to 350, Ellie, but, you know, whatever. Can't be picky. Thank you very much, people. Hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you guys on the next episode. Well, I'll see you guys later on, probably, on Dasker Discusses. And you know what's coming next. And boom.